In a small town where everyone seemed to follow the same rhythm, there lived a teenage girl who stood out like a splash of color on a gray canvas. Her name was Maya, and she wasn't your typical high schooler. With her fiery red hair that caught, the sunlight just right, and piercing green eyes that could hold their own in any stare down, Maya had always been someone people noticed. But it wasn't just her looks. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that made her different from the crowd. Maya didn't believe in staying silent when something felt wrong. Whether it was standing up for a friend who got bullied or questioning why certain rules existed at school, she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Some kids admired her for it. Others thought she was too bold, maybe even a little reckless. But Maya didn't care much about what they thought. She cared more about doing what felt right. One crisp autumn afternoon, the entire student body gathered in the auditorium for one of those mandatory assemblies no one really looked forward to. The principal droned on about respecting authority and following the rules, topics that usually made most students tune out. They sat slouched in their chairs, doodling in notebooks or scrolling through their phones under the desks. It was just another day at Maplewood High until Maya decided it. WASN single quotes T. The principal announced something new. Student council elections would only be open to seniors this year. No juniors, no sophomores, and definitely no freshmen. His reasoning? Seniors had more experience and were better equipped to lead. As soon as the words left his mouth, Maya felt a surge of frustration bubbling inside her. How could anyone expect younger students to learn leadership skills if they weren't given a chance? What about all the ideas and energy the other grades brought to the table? Before she knew it, Maya was on her feet. Her chair scraped against the floor, drawing every eye in the room toward her. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, without hesitation, she spoke. "That's not fair." Her voice rang out clear and strong, cutting through the hum of whispers. Why should only seniors get to run for student council? Leadership isn't about age, it's about ideas and passion. If we want real change, we need everyone's voices to matter. For a split second, the room stayed frozen. Then came the murmurs, some supportive, some mocking. Teachers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to applaud her courage or scold her for interrupting. And then, from somewhere near the back of the auditorium, a loud, dismissive voice cut through the chaos. Sit down, Maya. You're embarrassing yourself." It was a boy, a senior named Jake. He was popular, confident, and used to getting his way. Known for his sharp tongue and knack for putting people in their place, Jake thrived on being the center of attention. To him, Maya's outburst was nothing more than an opportunity to show off. His comment echoed through the auditorium, followed by nervous laughter from some corners of the room. For a heartbeat, Maya hesitated. Every instinct told her to sit back down to avoid making a scene. After all, standing up meant risking ridicule, judgment, and possibly worse. But then she remembered why she'd stood up in the first place. This wasn't about her, it was about fairness, about giving everyone a chance to be heard. So instead of sitting, she straightened her spine and lifted her chin higher. Eyes locked onto Jake's smug expression. There was defiance in her gaze, but also determination. She took a deep breath and said firmly, "I'm not embarrassed. I'm standing up for what I believe in." The room fell silent again, but this time it felt different. A few students nodded approvingly, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the principal paused mid-sentence, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. Maya could feel her heart racing, but she refused to let fear take over. Instead, she stood taller, feeling a strange sense of power in knowing she'd done the right thing, even if it came at a cost. Little did Maya know, this moment would set off a chain reaction that would ripple through the entire school. It wasn't just about challenging a rule anymore. It was about proving that one person's voice could spark a movement. And as she walked out of the auditorium later that day, surrounded by curious stares and hushed conversations, Maya realized she was ready to face whatever came next. The moment Maya stepped out of the auditorium, she could feel the weight of everyone's stares on her back. Whispers followed her like shadows, growing louder as she walked down the hallway. Some kids gave her thumbs-ups or quick nods of approval, but most just gawked, unsure whether to admire her bravery or pity her for drawing so much attention to herself. By lunchtime, the whole school was buzzing about what had happened. Social media only made things worse or better, depending on how you looked at it. Within an hour, someone had posted a video of Maya standing up in the auditorium. The clip spread like wildfire, with comments flooding in from all sides. Some people called her brave and said they wished they'd had the guts to do the same. Others mocked her, calling her names or saying she was trying too hard to be the hero. One particularly nasty comment read, "Who does she think she is? She's gonna ruin everything." Then there was Jake. He wasn't content with just yelling at her during the assembly. Later that evening, he took to social media, posting memes and sarcastic remarks under the hashtag #SitDownMaya. His posts went viral among the senior class, turning what started as a single rude comment into a full-blown campaign to discredit her. Anonymous messages began pouring into Maya's inbox, some teasing, some downright cruel. It felt like the entire world was against her. At home, Maya tried to act normal, but her parents noticed something was off. Over dinner, her mom asked gently, "You've been quiet tonight. Is everything okay?" Maya hesitated before telling them about what had happened at school. She explained how she'd spoken up about the unfair election rule and how Jake had shouted at her in front of everyone. Her dad listened intently, his brow furrowed, while her mom nodded thoughtfully. When Maya finished, her dad leaned forward and said, "Standing up for what you believe in takes courage. But are you ready for what comes next? People won't always agree with you, and some might try to bring you down." Her mom added softly, "We're proud of you, sweetheart. Just remember, you don't have to fight this battle alone." Their words comforted her, but they didn't erase the sting of the backlash she faced online. That night, Maya lay awake, in bed, staring at the ceiling. She scrolled through her phone, reading hateful comments until tears blurred her vision. For the first time, doubt crept in. Had she gone too far? Was it worth it to keep fighting when so many people seemed determined to tear her apart? But then she remembered why she'd stood up in the first place. It wasn't about her, it was about fairness, about giving younger students a chance to lead. If she backed down now, what message would that send? That it was okay to stay silent when something was wrong? No, she couldn't let fear stop her. Not yet. The next morning, Maya woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She decided to channel her frustration into action. Sitting at her desk, she opened her journal and began writing furiously. Words poured out of her, angry, passionate, honest. She wrote about feeling invisible, about wanting to make a difference, about refusing to let anyone silence her. By the time she finished, she realized she'd written more than just entries. She drafted the beginnings of a speech. At school, things were tense. Some kids avoided eye contact when they passed her in the hallways, afraid of being associated with the troublemaker. Others whispered behind her back, their voices sharp and judgmental. But not everyone turned against her. During third period, a group of freshman girls approached her hesitantly after class. "Hey," one of them said shyly, "we just wanted to say, thanks. What you did yesterday, it meant a lot to us." Maya blinked, surprised. "Really?" Another girl nodded. "Yeah, we've always felt like we didn't have a voice, you know? Like our ideas don't matter because we're not seniors." But hearing you speak up made us feel like maybe we can change that." Their words warmed Maya's heart and reminded her she wasn't alone. Encouraged by their support, she started talking to other students who felt the same way. Slowly but surely, a small group began to form around her. They met during lunch breaks, brainstorming ways to challenge the unfair election policy. Together, they came up with a plan: gather signatures for a petition, present their case to the administration, and show that this issue mattered to more than just one person. One afternoon, as Maya worked on drafting the petition, she got an unexpected visitor. A senior boy she didn't know very well stopped by her locker. "Hey," he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "I heard what you've been doing. I don't agree with everything you're saying, but I respect that you're sticking to your guns. And honestly, Jake can be a real jerk sometimes." Maya raised an eyebrow, caught off guard. "Thanks. I guess," he shrugged. "Just thought you should know. Keep doing what you're doing." It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind Maya that not everyone was against her. Even some seniors who stood to benefit the most from keeping the current system were starting to see her point. With each new ally, Maya felt a little stronger, a little braver. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she felt like she had a team behind her. As the days passed, the movement grew. Posters appeared on bulletin boards urging students to sign the petition. Teachers began mentioning Maya's cause in passing, sparking debates in classrooms. Word spread beyond Maplewood High, reaching alumni and even parents. People who had once dismissed her as just another rebellious teenager now saw her as a catalyst for change. But Jake wasn't done fighting back. Determined to shut her down, he ramped up his attacks, posting increasingly harsh comments online and rallying his friends to do the same. He accused Maya of stirring up trouble just to get attention, insisting that tradition mattered more than innovation. The pressure mounted, and Maya found herself questioning whether she could handle the storm she'd unleashed. Yet every time she felt like giving up, she remembered the faces of the freshman girls who thanked her, the hesitant smiles of the seniors who supported her, and the fire in her own heart that refused to burn out. This wasn't just about changing a rule anymore, it was about proving that one voice could inspire many. And Maya was determined to prove it, no matter what it took. As the days turned into weeks, Maya's group, now calling themselves the Youth Voice Initiative, began to gain real momentum. What had started as a few scribbled notes and whispered conversations in the hallway grew into something much bigger. They held meetings during lunch breaks, cramming into an empty classroom where ideas bounced off the walls like sparks. Each session was electric with energy, as students from all grades poured in, eager to share their thoughts and frustrations. At first, organizing felt chaotic. Everyone had strong opinions, and not everyone agreed on how to move forward. Some wanted to focus solely on changing the election policy, while others argued they should tackle other unfair rules too. A freshman suggested staging a walkout to grab attention, but a junior shot it down, saying it might alienate teachers and parents. Voices rose, tempers flared, and more than once, Maya wondered if the whole thing would fall apart before it even got off the ground. But through the chaos, Maya found her role. She wasn't just the one who had sparked the movement. She became its glue. When arguments broke out, she stepped in to mediate, reminding everyone why they were there. "We're not here to fight each other," she'd say firmly, her green eyes locking onto whoever was yelling. "We're here because we want things to be better for everyone." Slowly, the group began to find its rhythm. They divided tasks based on strengths. Some focused on drafting petitions, others designed posters, and a few brave souls volunteered to talk to teachers and administrators directly. Maya herself spent hours working on a presentation, determined to make their case clear and convincing. She practiced in front of her bedroom mirror at night, tweaking her words until they sounded just right. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya sat cross-legged on her bed surrounded by papers. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from the group, updates about signatures collected or new supporters joining the cause. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel proud not of herself, but of what they'd built together. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It belonged to all of them. The next day, a breakthrough came when Mr. Patel, the history teacher, pulled Maya aside after class. He had always been one of her favorite teachers, kind but firm, with a knack for making even the driest topics interesting. "I've been watching what you and your friends are doing," he said, his voice low so no one else could overhear. "It's impressive. But I think you need guidance if you're going to take this to the next level." He handed her a thick folder filled with documents, examples of successful student-led campaigns, tips on writing formal proposals, and even contact information for alumni who had fought similar battles years ago. "Use these," he urged, "and let me know if you need help reviewing anything. You're on to something important here." Maya couldn't believe her luck. With Mr. Patel's support, the group's efforts kicked into high gear. They refined their petition, adding statistics and quotes from students who felt excluded by the current system. They reached out to former students, many of whom shared stories of feeling shut out during their own high school days. One alumnus sent a heartfelt email thanking them for taking a stand, saying she wished someone had done the same when she was younger. Meanwhile, Jake continued to push back harder than ever. He mocked their efforts online, posting sarcastic memes and snarky comments under every update the group shared. His followers ate it up, flooding Maya's social media accounts with insults and threats. Some called her selfish, accusing her of ruining traditions that had stood for decades. Others dismissed her as naive, claiming she didn't understand how the world worked. For a while, Maya tried to ignore it. She deleted hateful comments without reading them and blocked users who crossed the line. But it was exhausting, like trying to hold back a tidal wave with bare hands. Late one night, after reading yet another cruel message, she broke down in tears. Her mom found her sitting on the floor of her room, clutching her phone tightly. "Hey," her mom said softly, sitting beside her. "Talk to me," Maya sniffled, wiping her eyes. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. Every time we make progress, it feels like 10 steps back because of all the hate." Her mom wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You knew this wouldn't be easy, didn't you? Change never is. But look at what you've already done. You've brought people together, given them hope. That's worth fighting for, isn't it?" Maya nodded slowly, though doubt still lingered. The next morning, however, something shifted. As she walked into school, she noticed a new poster hanging near the entrance. It read, ***, your voice matters." Beneath it was a list of named students who supported the Youth Voice initiative. Dozens of signatures covered the page, filling every inch of space. Someone had even drawn little stars and hearts around the edges. A group of sophomores waved at her from across the hall, holding stacks of flyers. "We made copies," one of them said excitedly. "We're handing them out today." Seeing their enthusiasm reignited Maya's spirit. If these kids believed in the cause enough to put themselves out there, then so could she. She squared her shoulders and smiled, ready to face whatever came next. By the end of the week, the movement had grown beyond anything Maya could have imagined. Teachers started mentioning it in class, sparking debates about fairness and leadership. Parents joined Facebook groups discussing the issue, praising the students for standing up. Even local news outlets caught wind of the story, sending reporters to interview Maya and her team. Through it all, Jake remained a constant thorn in their side. He doubled down on his attacks, calling Maya power-hungry and accusing her of dividing the school. But his words carried less weight now. More and more seniors began speaking out in support of the initiative, realizing that giving younger students a voice didn't diminish their own opportunities, it expanded them. One afternoon, as Maya packed up her books after another long meeting, a senior girl approached her hesitantly. "Can I talk to you for a sec?" she asked. Maya nodded, curious. "Sure." The girl glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I know Jake's been giving you a hard time. Don't listen to him. A lot of us think what you're doing is awesome. We're just scared to say it out loud." Maya smiled, touched by the admission. "Thanks for telling me. That means a lot." As the girl walked away, Maya felt a surge of hope. She realized that Jake's loud opposition wasn't the only voice out there. For every person who doubted her, there were two more willing to stand beside her. And together, they were proving that change was possible, even in a place as stubborn as Maplewood High. The day of the school board meeting finally arrived, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Maya woke up early, her stomach churning with a mix of excitement and nerves. She spent an hour pacing around her room, practicing her speech in her head while staring at the notes she'd written. Her handwriting was messy from all the revisions, but every word carried meaning. Every sentence had been crafted to make people listen. Her mom knocked on her door before leaving for work. "You ready?" she asked, handing Maya a thermos of tea. Maya took a deep breath and nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Her mom smiled warmly. "Remember, you've got this. Just speak from your heart." With that, Maya grabbed her bag and headed out the door. When she arrived at school, the group was already gathered in the library, huddled over laptops and piles of papers. The room smelled like coffee and nervous energy. Everyone looked exhausted but determined, their faces glowing with a mix of hope and anxiety. "We're going to do great," Maya said, trying to sound confident even though her hands were shaking. She pulled out her notes one last time and went over them silently, mouthing the words under her breath. By late afternoon, the auditorium where the meeting would take place was packed. Parents, teachers, students, and even a few reporters filled the seats, creating a low hum of chatter that echoed through the space. At the front of the room sat the school board members, 5 adults who held the power to decide whether or not to change the election policy. They looked stern, flipping through folders and whispering among themselves. When it was time for the presentations to begin, the principal stepped up to introduce the agenda. He glanced briefly at Maya's group, his expression unreadable, then gestured for the first speaker to come forward. One by one, people approached the podium to voice their opinions. Some argued passionately against changing the rules, claiming it would disrupt tradition and create chaos. Others spoke in favor of reform, pointing out how outdated the current system was. Finally, it was Maya's turn. As she walked toward the podium, her footsteps echoed loudly in the quiet room. Every eye was on her, and for a moment she froze. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. But then she remembered her mom's advice, "Speak from your heart." Taking a deep breath, she adjusted the microphone and began. "Hi," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Maya, and I'm here today because I believe in fairness. For years, only seniors have been allowed to run for student council. That means juniors, sophomores, and freshmen are left out, not because they aren't capable, but because of a rule that doesn't make sense anymore." She paused, scanning the crowd. Some people nodded encouragingly, while others stared blankly. Ignoring the skeptics, she pressed on. "Leadership isn't about age, it's about ideas, passion, and the willingness to work for something bigger than yourself. By excluding younger students, we're telling them their voices don't matter. We're saying they can't contribute until they're older. But why should anyone have to wait to make a difference?" Her confidence grew as she spoke, her voice becoming steadier. She shared stories from students who felt shut out, quoted statistics showing how diverse leadership benefited schools, and explained the steps her group had taken to gather support. By the time she finished, the room erupted into applause. Teachers clapped enthusiastically, parents wiped away tears, and students cheered loudly. But just as quickly as the applause came, the mood shifted. Jake stood up from his seat near the back of the room and strode confidently to the podium. His smirk was back and his tone dripped with sarcasm as he addressed the board. "You think changing the rules will fix anything?" He sneered, glancing pointedly at Maya. "All you're doing is creating chaos. Some people just aren't cut out to lead." His words hit like a punch, silencing the room. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she refused to look away. Instead, she met his gaze head-on, her jaw tightening with resolve. When it was her turn to respond, she stepped forward again, gripping the sides of the podium tightly. "Maybe I'm not." "Perfect," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Maybe we'll make mistakes along the way. But isn't it better to try than to stay silent forever? Isn't it better to give everyone a chance instead of shutting them out?" The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Even Jake seemed taken aback, his usual smugness faltering for a split second. Maya didn't wait for him to recover. She turned back to the board, her voice rising with conviction. "This isn't about me or any one person. It's about making our school a place where everyone feels valued, where everyone has a chance to shine. Please don't let fear of change stop us from doing what's right." When she returned to her seat, the room remained quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, people began to clap again. This time, the applause was louder, more heartfelt. Even some of the board members nodded approvingly, jotting down notes as they listened. After hours of discussion, the board called for a vote. One by one, each member cast their decision. Maya held her breath, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. When the final tally was announced, the verdict was unanimous. The election policy would be revised to include all grade levels. The room erupted into cheers. Students hugged each other, teachers exchanged proud smiles, and parents wiped away happy tears. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat as she looked around at the sea of faces. For months, she'd fought so hard for this moment, and now it was real. Change was happening, and it was because of her and her team. Later that evening, as she walked home under a sky painted with stars, Maya replayed the events of the day in her mind. She thought about Jake's snide remarks, the hateful comments online, and the countless nights she'd stayed up worrying if it was all worth it. And yet, here she was, standing taller than ever, knowing she'd made a difference. When she got home, her parents greeted her with hugs and congratulations. Her dad ruffled her hair affectionately. "I told you, you've got guts, kid." Maya grinned, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Exhaustion tugged at her, but it was the good kind, the kind that comes after a battle well fought. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she realized something important. Change wasn't easy, but it was possible. All it took was courage, persistence, and a little help from those who believed in you. And for the first time in a long time, Maya slept soundly, dreaming of all the ways her school and maybe even her town could grow stronger together. In the weeks that followed the school board's decision, life at Maplewood High began to transform in ways no one had fully anticipated. The revised election policy opened doors for students who had never imagined themselves running for leadership positions. Freshmen and sophomores threw their hats into the ring with enthusiasm, bringing fresh perspectives and bold ideas to the table. Campaign posters covered every bulletin board, each one bursting with creativity and ambition. Gone were the days when only seniors dominated the student council. Now, it was a true reflection of the entire student body. Maya watched it all unfold with a mix of pride and awe. She hadn't expected her fight to spark such a ripple effect. At first, she worried about how the new system would play out, but as campaigns kicked off, she realized something incredible. The energy in the school had shifted. Conversations in the hallways weren't just about gossip or weekend plans anymore, they were about ideas. Students debated policies, brainstormed solutions for common problems, and encouraged each other to participate. It was like watching a garden bloom after a long winter, but Maya's journey wasn't without its challenges. Even though they'd won the battle, Jake continued to resist. He mocked the younger candidates during lunch, rolling his eyes whenever someone mentioned change or progress. Some of his friends joined in, snickering loudly enough for others to hear. To them, the whole thing still felt like an another attack on tradition, a disruption of the way things were supposed to be done. At first, Maya tried to ignore him. She focused on supporting the candidates, helping them refine their speeches and plan events to engage voters. But one day, during a particularly heated exchange in the cafeteria, Jake crossed a line. A sophomore girl named Lily, who was running for treasurer, stood nervously at the front of the room presenting her platform. Her voice wavered as she spoke, clearly intimidated by the crowd. When Jake leaned back in his chair and muttered loud, "Enough for everyone to hear. This is why we don't let kids run things," Maya snapped. She marched straight over to his table, her fiery red hair catching the light as she moved. "Enough," she said sharply, her green eyes blazing. "If you've got a problem, say it to my face. But stop tearing people down because you're scared of change." The room fell silent. Jake blinked, caught off guard by her sudden intensity. For once, his usual smirk faltered. After a moment, he mumbled something under his breath and looked away, unable or unwilling to meet her gaze. That confrontation marked a turning point. Slowly but surely, Jake began to step back. He didn't apologize or suddenly become an ally, but he stopped actively opposing the movement. Maybe he saw that resistance was futile, or maybe he simply grew tired of being the villain. Either way, his silence allowed the momentum to continue building. As election day approached, excitement reached a fever pitch. Candidates hosted debates, organized fundraisers for school projects, and even collaborated across grade levels to address shared concerns. Maya worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Though she wasn't running herself, she felt deeply invested in the process. This was her legacy, the proof that standing up for what you believe in could create real, lasting impact. When the results were announced, the winners represented a diverse mix of grades and backgrounds. A freshman boy became the new secretary, while a junior girl took on the role of president. Their victory speeches were filled with gratitude and promises to listen to everyone's voices. As Maya stood in the auditorium, surrounded by cheering classmates, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. All the late nights, tough conversations, and moments of doubt had been worth it. Over time, the changes extended beyond student council. Teachers noticed a shift in classroom dynamics, with more students raising their hands and contributing to discussions. Parents praised the initiative, saying it made them proud to see young people taking responsibility for their education. Even local newspapers wrote articles highlighting Maplewood High as a model for inclusive leadership. For Maya, the experience changed her in ways she hadn't expected. She learned that courage wasn't about never feeling afraid, it was about acting despite fear. She discovered the power of community, realizing that one person's voice could inspire many. And most importantly, she proved to herself that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Years later, as graduation day approached, Maya found herself reflecting on her high school journey. She remembered the nervous girl who'd stood up in the auditorium, unsure if anyone would listen. She thought about the backlash she'd faced, the allies she'd gained, and the victories they'd celebrated together. Now, as she prepared to walk across the stage and receive her diploma, she knew she was leaving behind something meaningful, a legacy of courage, resilience, and hope. On the morning of graduation, Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting her cap and gown. Her mom walked in, holding a framed photo. It was a picture from the day of the school board meeting, the one where Maya stood confidently at the podium, surrounded by her team. Her mom placed it gently on the dresser. "Just a reminder of how far you've come," she said softly. Maya smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you guys." Later that afternoon, as she sat among her classmates listening to speeches about dreams and futures, Maya felt a deep sense of peace. She knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew she had the tools to face whatever came her way. Because now, she understood something important. Standing up for what you believe in isn't about winning every argument. It's about staying true to yourself, even when the world tells you to sit down. And as she stood to accept her diploma, applause echoing around her, Maya stood taller than ever, not just physically, but in spirit. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that her voice mattered. And so did everyone else's.